Thursday, April 8th, 2021, Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Today we're going to look at how growing signs of speculation, gambling, corruption are all symptoms of currency collapse or hyperinflation. We're going to reference a couple of books to show you that this is something that happens historically. Human nature doesn't change. We're not immune to the failures of our forefathers, and we're no better than they were. So we're going to look at fiat money inflation in France and when money dies for that. So, and why am I talking about this? Well, I saw actually about a week ago, I was driving actually. I haven't been driving much because of the lockdown, but I think I went to play golf and I had the radio on and they spoke about the CEO of Bet365. Bet365 is a big betting company here in the UK. And the news was that the CEO had made 469 million pounds last year. It's her pay packet. It's a lady. She made over $500 million. and I thought to myself, well, that's not, that doesn't make sense. That's not a good sign that the CEO of a gambling company has made so much money. So here's the story from the Evening Standard. I think the Evening Standard right now, the editor is George Osborne, who used to be the Chancellor of the Exchequer, equivalent of the Secretary of the Treasury here in the UK. I'm going to talk about him later. As far as corruption is concerned, right now, let's look at the gambling spirit that is growing. And why does it grow in environment of loss of confidence in the currency? Because that's what hyperinflation eventually is. It's a loss of confidence in the currency. Well, because the economy becomes so moribund, the economy has so much debt, private businesses do not thrive anymore. People's wages do not cover their living expenses. So they have to resort to trying to make a fortune through gambling. People see no hope in having an honest job and actually earning an honest wage and being able to save the money. And why can't they save the money? Well, because everything is so expensive. Banks are not paying any interest. It's unaffordable to buy a house or to do anything that you can normally do in the sane monetary system. So let's go look at this. Bet365 boss Denise Coates takes home record 469 million pounds. Well, that's about $750 million, roughly, pay packet. She was paid a salary of 421 million, along with 48 million dividend, according to accounts filed with Companies House. So I'm going to put this article, a link to it, below in the description. I'm not even going to go through it. I just think it's quite outrageous. And I'm not against people being successful, but this just shows that people are gambling out there. They're putting a lot of bets on. And yeah, the culture of gambling is very strong in the UK. There's also the lottery. I remember the lottery was created back in the, I think, early mid-90s by John Major, his government, conservative government, Prime Minister John Major. And there's only one game. That was it. You got the numbers in. But now there's so many different games. People play all kinds of different games in the lottery. That's another sign as well. Countries like Brazil, I remember there are a lot of lotteries because people have no hope in really growing an honest nest egg through a decent job. I would say cryptocurrencies are a symptom of hyperinflation, not just because people want a protection from a falling currency, not just because people see the dollar going to zero, but there is a lot of speculation in cryptocurrencies, in altcoins. I've been involved in the cryptocurrencies for many years. Not that heavily, but I've seen that there's a lot of greed, a lot of people wanting to make a quick buck. Well, that's another sign. They resort to cryptocurrencies to try to make a fortune because they don't see any other way of doing it. Hedge funds, that's another symptom of hyperinflation. I remember back in 1997, when I was still in the city of London working as a futures broker, the firm I worked for, which was actually Citibank Futures, the futures arm of Citibank, they were bought out by ABN AMRO. And I remember at the time I had a prospect, this guy who was building up, starting out his hedge fund, and he wanted to open not a prime brokerage account where we would keep his money, the fund's money, and clear all the trades. He just wanted to execute through ABN AMRO, through me, to give me the business. And ABN AMRO at this time said, the compliance guy said, no, we can't have a hedge fund. So only 24 years ago, hedge funds were seen as highly speculative. But now, hedge fund managers, the hedge fund industry is well respected. And hedge funds, all it is speculation. It's very clever individuals that maybe under a normal, more sound monetary system would be doing things like engineering, science. There'd be doctors, lawyers, something more productive. They would start real businesses, manufacturing. But these people see as well that there's a better chance of making a killing or a fortune through speculation. And that's all it is. Don't be fooled into thinking that a hedge fund is hedged. It's purely a speculative endeavor. So does that mean I think speculation is a bad thing? No, not at all. All I'm saying is that when a lot of people are doing it, the general public is doing, very smart people are doing it, when it's pervasive, that is a bad sign. That is a sign that the currency has failed. So I'm going to show you here some examples that it happened in Germany in 1923 as well, during the Weimar hyperinflation. So if you go to page 25, it says here, speculation on the stock exchange has spread to all ranks of the population and shares rise like air balloons to limitless heights. Well, that sounds very familiar to today, doesn't it? Robin Hood, you see all other brokers out there. You see ETFs as well that are basically derivatives. General public is trading in derivatives through ETFs and they don't even know what they're doing, right? My banker congratulates me on every new rise, but he does not dispel the secret uneasiness which my growing wealth arouses in me. It already amounts to millions. So there you go. Even back during the Weimar hyperinflation, there was gambling and speculation. We'll go to France. This is what this book is about, fiat money inflation in France. That's when the French created the assignats, the paper currency that collapsed in around 1795. This was just after the revolution, when the French economy had huge debts, and they tried to kickstart the economy. Sounds familiar, by issuing paper money, and it led to hyperinflation as well. So we'll go to page 28 to give you a feeling and an idea of how I get these conclusions that I do. Now began to be seen more plainly some of the many ways in which an inflation policy robs the working class. as these knots of plotting schemers at the city centers were becoming bloated with sudden wealth, the producing classes of the country, though having in their possession more and more currency, grew lean. Yeah, that's what's happening today. You've got Wall Street, the city of London. They're doing great. The billionaires, the 1%, and the working class is having a tough time. They're in need of stimulus checks. They wouldn't survive if they didn't have stimulus checks and all the help from government. Well, yeah, we know that how that will end, right? In the schemes and speculations put forth by stock jobbers, well, those are stock jobbers, speculators in the stock market, and stimulated by the printing of more currency, QE, multitudes of small fortunes were absorbed and lost, while a few swollen fortunes were rapidly aggregated in the larger cities. Well, that's what we've seen in the last 12 months, that the billionaires have doubled their fortunes. This crippled a large class in the countryside, which had employed a great number of workmen. In the leading French cities now arose a luxury and license which was a greater evil even than the plundering which ministered to it. So here we go. In the country, the gambling spirit spread more and more. Says the same thoughtful historian whom I have already quoted. And this is a quote here. What a prospect for a country when its rural population was changed into a great band of gamblers. So there you go. I'll stop at that. It looks like we're becoming more and more a great band of gamblers like in France in the 1790s. What about the corruption? Because there is a lot of corruption as well. And why? Well, because when you have fiat currency, the government gets involved in the economy. The politicians get paid off by the people who they give the contracts to. Corruption is really a symptom as well of this, especially rampant corruption. And I think we're seeing that in this country, in the UK. They don't call it corruption when politicians go to work after they leave office at a major corporation, and they get paid exorbitant salaries for being advisors. They call that's what they do. You know, they hide, they cover it up. But the guy who's the editor of the Evening Standard, George Osborne, he was in government until 2015, and he got a job with BlackRock and earning a salary of £650,000 a year for working 1 day a week. And the guy's background is not even in finance. So there's an example of the corruption, so to speak. And that is a sign of a currency that is on its last legs, I would say. Prime Minister David Cameron, we've just heard recently that he was set to make $70 million for being an advisor to Greensill Capital Management, the hedge fund that failed miserably a few weeks ago. It cost a very senior executives at Credit Suisse their jobs. I think Credit Suisse lost like £4 billion at least. And that's just probably the beginning. In the US as well, we've seen many stories of politicians who become loaded while they're even politicians, right? People like Nancy Pelosi, people like Tony Blair as well, who got a job after he left office with JP Morgan. When did you hear of Tony Blair being a banker, right? But he was an advisor, and he earned £2 million a year for going there maybe once or twice a week as well. So I think we're a lot closer. And so gambling, speculation, corruption, all these things are symptoms of hyperinflation. Not that they don't happen all the time, but when it becomes pervasive, and when the CEO of a betting company in the UK is making almost $750 million in compensation for 1 year, I think that's a really bad sign. And I can't tell you though when it's going to happen, but if you're not prepared outside the system with your physical gold and silver as monetary savings. And why do I always say physical gold and silver? Well, because if you're one of those that think that having a lot of money in the bank, fiat currency in the bank, is safe, I think you need to think again. Of course, not having any debt, having hard assets, and also having a well-paying job, a productive business, or something like that will help you. But if you have your savings in paper, it will be wiped out overnight. Once it starts, it's going to be very hard to get prepared. You should be preparing, in my opinion, right now while you can. So with that, let's quickly look at where the markets are this morning. It's 8:41 a.m. London. We've got spot gold at 1746, so we're up over $8. The high's been 1748. So we're near the highs here of the week. I think this is the high of the week so far. Again, 1755 level is a key resistance. The low has been 1733 overnight. So gold doing fairly well right now. Silver is up 22 cents, just under 1% at 25.34. Low's been 24.95 and the high 25.42. The Dow future is up 39. The Nasdaq future is up 109. S&P is up 16 points. The pound is up 0.2% at 137.68. The euro is up 0.1% at 118.83. The dollar is down 0.25% versus the yen at 109.55. Dollar's up 0.1% versus the Chinese yuan at 655.56. High-grade copper is up 0.2% at 407.87. WTI crude is down 0.5% at 59.42. The 10-year yield is at 166, unchanged. So there you go. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button. Please share it far and wide. Think about subscribing to my channel if you haven't yet. And you can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and all these other platforms below here. I wish you all a great day. Take care. Bye.